Welcome to the Roniel and DaRon podcast show. I am Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
And on this day's episode, we're going to talk about some other scams. And as you see in the previous episode, if you haven't seen already, you can go check that out where we talked about the Facebook scam. This episode, we're going to talk about the dating scam. Yes. And I will let DaRon kick us off.
So really, I'm going to discuss two common, one a little older, the other a little newer, online dating scams that you're seeing a lot of, especially right now, especially with the whole COVID thing. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of things like Match.com, OkCupid, and so on and so forth. What the older version of this scam is where you start dating someone, supposedly maybe they're a soldier in Iraq or Afghanistan, although that one has decreased since, of course, we've pulled back. Or maybe they are a businessman, or typically it's men, because it's actually generally geared toward women. But this businessman, he needs money because he has to go on this trip to Africa, and then it spirals out. Now he's got to pay bribes. Now he got injured and he needs money immediately for the hospital because he also didn't just get injured, he also got mugged. Everything was stolen. And then he's going to need money for his passport and for a flight back home. And it starts to string out more and more and more. I actually had a woman, and this one was pretty heartbreaking. She got taken in by this very scam, and they milked her for everything she had in her savings. The woman was in her early 60s. She was a nurse, and guy went on a business trip, and this was over the course of a whole year. So for the first part of it, really just getting her trust and really getting her to fall in love with him. And it's actually usually, this scam is usually out of Ghana, by the way. And he really worked hard to get her to fall in love. The pictures were fake. Everything was fake about everything tied to this alleged individual. And he's just this businessman going about his day. And he's got kids. He is, formerly married. Wife died. Sometimes it's no kids and all kinds of stuff. There are lots of variations on this. But what you see is ultimately the individual has tragedy after tragedy after tragedy to befall them. And each tragedy becomes more and more expensive. And they also get closer and closer together. And in this poor woman's case, it took her a good long time before while she had an inkling shortly into it that something was wrong, it took her a long time because part of it is that sunken cost fallacy, but the other component to it is she was in love. And this was with someone she'd never met, and she'd never even really done anything with video-wise. I believe they maybe had some phone calls, but of course, she's here in the United States, he's in a completely different time zone, and this is how they avoid having to meet and all of this other stuff. But even if they do have you meet, obviously you don't actually know anything about this individual. What wound up happening was, she had an inkling that something was amiss. She came to us, and I didn't take a penny from her. She didn't have a penny anyway, even if I had wanted to. I didn't take a penny from her. And what I did was I traced everything back. I managed to figure out exactly where this gentleman was from. I literally showed her not just the country he was in, not just the city he was in, not just the block he was in, but the exact apartment he was in, showed it on a map, showed what floor he was on and what room, and the exact corner of this building this guy had been scamming her from this entire time, and where he lived and all of this other stuff. And it was honestly devastating when it hit her how badly she had been taken in, because the scam hits you on multiple levels. It's not just the financial loss, it's the love or the potential future that's also lost in all of this. And to watch her world come falling down, realizing she blew her entire life savings. I mean, and this is a nurse. She didn't have much to begin with. She didn't have much in the way of a retirement or anything like this. And it was gone. And it was in a different country, a country that wasn't going to extradite him, a country that wasn't going to take any action to get her money back. And she was out tens of thousands of dollars with nothing to show and no love. And that was a real travesty. And the point being, you have to really pay attention to these warning signs. And remember that when you have any of these long distance relationships where you've never met, you really don't know the person. And that goes to another one. So this is the second kind of scam, and this one's much newer. That other one has been around for a little while. And in this particular scam, what happened was, and this one was OkCupid in this particular case. The other one was Match.com, I believe. This gentleman had, I don't know, I guess he'd liked some other, or whatever you do, swipe. I don't even know if it's left or right. I don't do any of this
Yeah,
stuff.
the swipe, yeah.
But he swiped one direction. Whatever the direction is that says you accept, and, this match.
You basically swipe left.
Okay. You swiped left. Thank you. I don't know. I'm surprised you know so much about this, Roniel.
When I was younger, on Facebook, they have a dating thing, and all of them do the same thing. You can go and swipe that way. And that, when you lead to that, I'm going to talk about the same thing that you're talking about, similar to a Facebook scam, and that's going on right now.
Okay, good. It's perfect. So what wound up happening was he matched to this woman, supposed woman, and of course it's OkCupid, so they're supposed to be over 18, all of this other stuff. Well, now I don't judge any of my clients except the pedophiles, and actually I don't take up pedophiles, but those are the only ones I would judge. And part of the reason why I don't take them up is because it is important as someone doing digital forensics to try to be as open-minded to all possibilities as possible, because you can't trust your client. In almost all cases, your client is going to lie to you about something. And at the same time, you can't trust the opposition, be they the government or not the government. It doesn't matter, because they'll also be lying to you. So you have to go in with an open mind and no preconceived notions about guilt or innocence or timelines or events. And that's actually why usually when I start an investigation, I start with nothing, and I purposely make sure I get no information. I'm just given the device or devices, and I start just going through and seeing what I see and let that spiral out a little bit. And that keeps it as unbiased as possible. Because one of the major ways that police investigations usually go awry is someone has an opinion as to who did it. And okay, I get it. In a murder, the spouse or significant other usually is the one who did it. But if you go in with the assumption that they're the one who did it, then you're going to miss all of the evidence that shows that they aren't the one that did it. And you're going to see and find all of the evidence that would link that. And that leads you down the wrong path. I don't do pedophile cases because I have children, and that stuff's so disgusting, and I have a history, and it's very difficult for me to distance myself from what's on the computer. So I don't feel like I can be unbiased in most cases. And so I don't pick those up. But I can be unbiased in other cases. I am unbiased in other cases. Just pedophile ones, I have children. I have children. There's a history. Yeah. And that stuff fucks you up. I mean, that stuff is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I've done one, and that stuff is nasty because you have to see the pictures, and
yeah,
that's nasty. That's
Some people are sick.
Yeah,
A lot of people are sick.
yeah, that stuff that's hard. That's hard. I think that is one instance of a case where universally from everyone I've worked with and talked to and that I know, women are significantly better than men at is handling pedophile cases. For whatever reason, women do a much better job not letting it get to them. And I don't fully understand why that is. I just know women are better able to handle the pedophile cases than men are, at least in general. Men, it destroys your mind. I don't know of a single male who works pedophile cases for very long, and
Yeah,
it just
I couldn't even do it. Even talking about it is just disturbing.
yeah, that stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so back to it. This is all important. That's why I bring it up. So what wound up happening was this guy sat there and he swiped left, apparently. Thank you, Roniel.
Hey, by the way, I don't know anything about that, and I'm just saying that that's usually what you do.
No, right. Okay. All right.
I know nothing about that.
Right.
Nothing. I'm just saying that on apps you swipe
Mm.
that way.
Okay.
Not this way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, but continue.
That was the worst attempt. You're gonna be in the doghouse when she sees this. Anyway,
I has nothing to do with me being a young teenager.
Yeah, right, because it's still going on.
No. I don't need it. My life is very interesting, and I don't need those type of problems. So I'm okay.
So anyway, this gentleman, he goes through, he swipes left to this match. They're matched up. They start messaging, and he takes a picture of himself with his shirt off, and effectively says, "Well, do you want to see more?" Now it was all above. It was from the waist up, just with the shirt off, and he says, "Do you want to see more?" She says yes. So he sends with boxers on a picture of him erect. He's had his clothes on, so it's not like, I mean, you could see anything of any illicit nature. I mean, hell, go to a high school, you'll see more of that thing. And It's not because they're actually happy either. It just happens,
Yep. One of those moments.
Yes. A mind of its own. You're like, no, I swear it's not me. I'm not.
Yeah, and then it's just doing its thing, especially when you have that teacher that you really, really liked in high school. Yeah. And you're like, or you're a little kid and you're just like, oh, I didn't, and you're talking and it's just there.
Yeah. Things happen,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Disclaimer,
right.
This is all false stuff.
Never happened to me.
No, not me either.
I'm pure.
Pure of heart.
That's right. Don't ask my wife. Anyway. So now he noticed though that the name in OkCupid was different than the name, they start texting, than the name on the phone. That the two things don't match, and something went off in his head that he couldn't quite explain until he blocked her. After they had a real quick conversation via text, he blocked her. And blocked her in OkCupid too. And then the next day, this is where, and he was right, all of that was great. Trust your gut. Then the next day, he decided to rethink it, and I guess he unblocked her and asked her if she got it because she had been having some problems downloading the picture, supposedly. And so she kept having him resend it and all of this other stuff. And I guess through OkCupid, you can't send pictures, which is why they started texting. But she said, oh yeah, I got it and I liked it. And then things got really weird. and he got a call from supposedly a police officer, and the name was said such that you got part of it, but you couldn't. It was something to the effect of, "My name is Officer Stephen Drunken," and you're like, "Wait, what did he say?" And you're going, "Well, that last name was kind of, there but not there, and just enough that you could kind of sort of match it to a lot of different names and that kind of thing, that ambiguity in it, so that it gets you in a real panic because now you don't even know who to call back." And he's saying, "Oh, well, it was a 13-year-old and she sent you naked pictures, and the mother caught her because the 13-year-old was using the mother's phone to do all of this, and the mother caught her while she was sending you a video, and now you're under arrest for child porn." Because, okay, this is actually important. Having the material on your computer or on your phone gets you in a world of hurt. And this is something that has actually caused a lot of teens issues because they do the whole sexting thing where they send a photo to another teen that they're into of, whatever. It boys and girls both do this, and that's child pornography. Okay, so now you're peddling child porn. Now you have child porn on your computer or whatever it is, that the device that has it downloaded, and now you're actually in trouble. And that is true, and that's a big deal. Now, in this particular case, of course, it's all an elaborate scam, the entire thing. There was no girl, there never was a girl, there was no police officer, and as we discussed in the last episode, the police aren't going to call you to tell you that they're coming to get you. It's not how it works. The IRS isn't going to call you to tell you they're sending a sheriff out. That's not how this works. All of that kind of stuff has to be official. In order to be official, it has to be in person or via U.S. mail. That's how this works. So, that's right.
Bad, Dan. You've been bad. They're coming to pick you up.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And they're not going to tell you they're coming to arrest you in mail. They're just going to come and arrest you in mail.
Yeah.
Or in person. They're just going to come and arrest you in person, excuse me. Yeah. That's how this works. In fact, that was a funny video of some guy who's sitting there live streaming on Facebook, and the SWAT team comes busting in while he's live streaming and gets him. I don't know if you've seen that. It's hilarious.
Is that the guy who was counting the money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This guy was literally flashing money. He's doing stuff, and all of a sudden you hear him bust in, and they do that a lot of time, and it doesn't make any sense. It's like, social media is a bad thing because back then it was harder. It's easier for the FBI or
yes.
police to figure out what's going on because all they got to do is use your social media. They could be monitoring you and they see your cash, your drugs, your everything. Yes. And then I don't know if you've seen this, but they are now able to tell how much traffic, to detect the traffic that's going through to one house and tell whether it's a drug spot.
Yes.
And I'm just like, social media, all this stuff has just made it like so easy. And people are making it so easy because they have to tell or show off and show the world what they're doing.
Yes.
Back then, you didn't have that.
Yes. Well, you're exactly right. And actually, in a future episode, we're really going to talk a lot about the fact that our privacy these days isn't what we think it is, and what we're doing is feeding a lot of data to the bad guys, but also to law enforcement, etc. And I know a lot of people would say, well, but I have nothing to fear. And that's great, but as we'll discuss in that episode, you still don't want to feed them that information. You really don't. There's a reason why we have, here in the United States anyway, so many laws and constitutionally given rights tied to privacy and tied to not incriminating yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize, but much of what they're saying online actually incriminates them. And while we'll discuss it in another episode, it includes things like, oh, well, I want to get training so that if someone breaks into my house, I can shoot them. Oh, I bought a gun so that if someone breaks into my house, I can shoot them. I'm taking martial arts so that I can sit there and defend myself and kill a bad guy. And oh, wouldn't it be so great if someone broke in so that I could use all these skills I've learned, or someone tried to mug me? And you may be laughing right now, but you would be amazed at how many people say that. And then the problem comes where someone actually legitimately breaks in and tries to do you harm, and you legitimately use your resources to defend yourself, because now you have a problem, since now it's premeditated. Because all of this illustrates that it wasn't really necessary in self-defense. You were hoping this was going to happen so that you could go through and do this thing. And it wasn't out of self-defense because, well, at this point, you're a black belt, or you're this or that, and you have hours of training, and you could have de-escalated. All of this stuff comes together, and it can really destroy your case. And a legitimate, what should have been a legitimate self-defense case, soon becomes you're in jail, even though they broke into your house or they mugged you, because what you said online was all brought together. Especially if whatever you're saying happens to be hate-filled, and let's say you say, well, I hate Roniel, and people like Roniel, those people with their endgame shirts, and some guy breaks into your house, that's right, with an endgame shirt, and it turns out that you shoot him, because now you're endgameist. I'm sure you all can read between the lines.
The endgame.
That's right. He really likes Star Trek. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid, you focus on being able to do, it's the most useless skill, except actually it's really good at hitting people's eyes. But
oh yes. Oh my. I used to hate the little 2-finger one, but this one is a lot stronger.
Oh, it is so much stronger. So much stronger. See, the Vulcans really were not coming in peace. They were actually getting ready to poke everyone in the eyes.
And don't do that out there. We're not telling you to poke anybody in the eye, so please do not use this content to poke in the eye. But
especially not family members.
Star Trek. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, not the people you love, right?
Anyway, so back to it. These really are two big online dating scams, and both are intended to milk you for money and to do a lot of irreparable harm to you. And one of the big things that I will tell you is actually, so for the second gentleman, I also didn't take any money from him either. There are a lot of reasons for this. Basically, if I don't think I do anything, I don't charge you. Or if I can't find whatever it is you're after, you don't get charged. Things like that. In this gentleman's case, he didn't have a lot of money anyway, so there wouldn't have been much point. But also, I really didn't do much. It was more advisory. And what I really told him, and this is honestly the best advice you will probably ever get as far as legal stuff is concerned. So he was asking me, okay, well, should I get my phone image? Should I get my computer image? Should I have them looked at? And all of this other stuff, because his lawyer was telling him initially, before they found out from us that this was a scam, his lawyer was saying, well, we're going to go through and preemptively just proffer all of this stuff up to the police. We'll get a report. We'll have forensics done and all of this other stuff, and we're going to proffer it to the police, showing that it wasn't your fault. You didn't know she was 13. You didn't have the video. You blocked her before any of that, so you had no child porn on your phone or on your computer or anything like that. And we'll just proffer it all to the police. First and foremost, I told him, you don't want to do that anyway. And there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that in 1 second. But I also told him, you shouldn't do any of this stuff, and you just need to sit tight. What I told him was, what you really ideally want to do in a case like this, because the police actually hadn't come to his door. The police hadn't requested anything. For all he knew, he wasn't really under any actual investigation. I said, take your phone, take your laptop, and hand them to your lawyer, and have your lawyer lock them up in a safe. Now, in the United States, lawyers are actually custodians of the court first, and representatives of you second. Now, what that means is they have taken an oath to uphold the law first and foremost, above everything else. Your lawyer cannot legally lie for you and all of this other crazy stuff. It doesn't mean that the lawyer won't work in your best interest. What that means is that if you have done something utterly terrible, technically, they're not allowed to cover it up for you. Right? The second component of this was that there was no point in spending money without knowing what the police wanted and what they were after. Now, what would have actually happened if he had continued the scam without getting a lawyer immediately involved, and then that lawyer, of course, immediately getting us involved, was the police officer would have sat there and demanded money and all of this stuff to make this go away. Which is a little ironic. Believe it or not, that kind of thing in the U.S. legal system is very rare. It's very rare to find a police officer who will take money for or extort or blackmail you like that. It does happen, but it's extremely rare. It's also illegal for you to give an officer money with the intent of covering up a crime, but that's another matter altogether. So now the other component to all of this is, like I said, don't proffer all of this stuff up. And the reason why I said this was because anything you say or do can and will be used against you. So let's say he sat there and he had this report done, and the report goes through and it says, like what his story was, because he was right and his story was believable, and we'd already imaged his phone. But that he didn't have anything, that he didn't do anything wrong, he didn't know she was 13, and all of this other stuff. You gave it to the police. That doesn't mean that the police believe you. That doesn't mean that the prosecutor believes you. That doesn't mean that they don't think that you tampered with it. And here's the other thing. With the phone he had using publicly available things, I could not root his phone without really rooting his phone. At which point, every prosecutor in the country would go through and say, this phone has been tampered with, you were covering up evidence.
Yeah.
Destroy his whole case. And so we could only get the stuff that hadn't been deleted. And when he blocked her, some of the data was deleted. And so, like I told him, you don't want to sit there and proffer all of this stuff because they could use it against you. They could use the report. They could use the fact that you requested me to jailbreak the phone, which I refused to do anyway on those grounds. I told him, you don't want me to do it. I will do it if you absolutely positively insist, but you really don't want this. And I advised against it, and so on and so forth. But all of this goes to say, you have to be very careful when you're dealing with anything, either forensically or just legally. Be cognizant of what it is you're saying and doing. And just because a lawyer is telling you to do something doesn't mean it's good advice. Unfortunately, some lawyers have better advice than others, and some lawyers have certain specialties. And sometimes you really want to oftentimes you want to listen to your experts. So in this particular case, when we were brought in, I was the expert. Okay. And I sat there and said, you don't want to do what your lawyer is suggesting you're doing. Yes, your lawyer is an expert on the law. Your lawyer is not an expert on technology. And your lawyer is not an expert on how this could potentially hose you. Because let's say I sat there and I imaged his phone. And yes, there were no messages that said he knew she was 13 and all of this other stuff. And he didn't have the messages from her. But maybe his phone had something else that was illegal on it, or that was illicit on it, something that shouldn't have been there. That would be in the report because, number one, I'm ethical. Number two, I'm bound to report that, and all of this other stuff. So it's actually better in that case that I not sit there and look at his system from that perspective, especially if the police hadn't requested it. And all of this stuff goes together and goes just to say, you have to be careful when you're dealing with people you don't know. And you have to understand that right now there are a large number of scams going around, especially pertaining to scams that will milk you for money. And you need to be very leery and weary of anything that involves financial compensation, that involves supposedly the police, FBI, Interpol. I've seen that kind of craziness, and so on and so forth. You really have to sit there. And when you start seeing that, your ears need to go up and you need to say something's wrong here. Unless the police are at your door, it's probably not the police.
Yeah. And the scam can seem very, very convincing. It doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it's right, and doesn't mean that you should just jump at the first thing you see. So, basically, the best thing to do is one, stay off of them dating sites. Go do it the original way. Go meet somebody. If you can't see them face to face, there's no point of actually trying to do no long distance dating. So
Yeah.
I would say stay away from the dating sites, especially on Facebook nowadays. They literally have a dating site on Facebook. Somebody was showing me that. And they have a big thing now. And now it's more of these investment scammers where they're, oh, hey, we're investors and we want to see if you want to invest in some things in the stock or this and that, and then they get you for your money there.
Yeah.
And they have these beautiful women on there, and you go and say, yeah, hey, how you doing? And all of a sudden you find yourself in a scam thinking that, you're going to meet a beautiful woman. And I've known a lot of people that have actually got themselves into those situations. So no matter how, much you fiend for a woman, it's better to maybe do it the old school way and go see the person.
Yes.
If you can't see him face to face, then I wouldn't trust it, no matter what. And do not, anybody that's asking you for money or any of your personal information, there's a problem.
Yes. Yes.
You should not be giving your personal information. So those things you need to keep in mind. And there are tons of plethora of other things that can give you red flags or tinker your antennas. But basically, those are the few things that you can be aware of.
Yes.
So, however, is there any other thing you wanted to talk about in this scam? However, that is another scam for the scamming segment of the show. If you like anything that we talked about today, please let us know. If you have anything that you would like us to talk about, please let us know down in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And I am Roniel.
I am DaRon.
And this is our segment. See you to the next time.
Have fun.